Good morning from the U.S. Embassy in Kingston, Jamaica. Welcome to Consular Conversations. As always, my name is Camila, and I'm going to be your host for today. As usual, we're going to wait a few minutes for people to tune in. Scott,
Yes,
it's the holiday season.
it is indeed.
How is it being in Jamaica during the holidays?
I mean, it's great. First of all, I don't have to put on a heavy winter coat.
Yep.
That's always a plus. I have to say I've been out at night a couple of times over the past week, and it's great seeing all the stores lit up with lights and houses and whatnot. And every now and then you'll see a car with a Christmas tree tied to the roof, and it feels very much like home, except that it's 88 degrees. Now, here's the question I have for you, Camila. Do you miss the snow? You're not from a snowy part of the country.
Yeah.
So
I grew up in Miami, so I'm very much used to this climate. But I did live in the north for a little bit, and I do miss the snow.
Yeah.
I love the snow.
Yeah, I miss it just long enough to see it out the window, but not enough to want to shovel it.
Yes, of course. Alrighty. So I think we've given people enough time to tune in. So once again, welcome everyone to Consular Conversations. My name is Camila, and our special guest today is, of course, our Consul General, but also our current Acting Deputy Chief of Mission, Mr. Scott Feakin.
Great. Good morning, Camila. Good morning to all of you.
Alrighty, everyone. So before we get started with Consular Conversations, we do have some good news to share with our audience. So we are hearing that another tranche of U.S. donated Pfizer vaccines should be arriving sometime today, correct?
That's exactly right, Camila. And this demonstrates the United States' continuing commitment to the people and the government of Jamaica in the fight against COVID-19. As you indicated, the third tranche of vaccines are expected to arrive sometime today here in country, in Kingston. It's going to be just over 200,000 doses of the Pfizer vaccine. Throughout COVID, we've provided over 600,000 vaccines, or the U.S. government has provided over 600,000 vaccines as donations to the government and the people of Jamaica. And let me just say, it's really, really important for people to get vaccinated. First and foremost, vaccination is the number one way in which people can protect themselves against the COVID-19 virus. I know people see in the news reports of the different variants that are out there. And it's important for people to protect themselves by getting vaccinated. I know that there are clinics all over the island that people can go to and get vaccinated. But on a practical level, as well as it relates to the work that we do here at the embassy, vaccination is important because in order to travel to the United States, which I think is the reason why people tune into Consular Conversations, is they're interested in either traveling or immigrating to the United States, you now have to be vaccinated. So it's important to do just for one's own personal health, but also as a practical matter, if a person is looking forward to travel to the United States at some point in the near future, vaccination is a key part of that.
Yes, of course, and especially for our immigrant visa applicants, it is necessary to be vaccinated in order to receive your medical exam. So we do encourage, everyone, especially if you're waiting for your immigrant visa, make sure you get vaccinated even before you have to do your medical, so that you don't add any extra delays.
Exactly.
All right, Scott. So it's been a long year here at Embassy Kingston, right? And of course, we've been very hard at work, but I think as we round out the year, we can talk about what we were able to achieve this year, but also what we are looking forward to hopefully achieving next year. Right.
Yeah. It seems like we had a little walk through memory lane in kind of pre-production for today's show, and we were talking about some of our first episodes of Consular Conversations and how things have progressed. And I hope folks can appreciate a higher production value now from where we were back in 2020 when we first started doing these shows. And we really have progressed. So I don't want to get into like specific numbers because that's always kind of dangerous to do. But 2019 was kind of our last normal year, if you will. And COVID hits in early 2020. And so what we saw in terms of how that impacted our consular operations was we went from our NIV production from 2019 to 2020, that went down basically we were just doing 25% of what we were doing in 2019. In 2021, and the year's not quite yet done, but we're pretty close and we have some pretty good numbers to work off of. We're about 37%, just a little less than 40% of where we were at in 2019. What we are projecting for 2022, now again, these are projections and things can change at a moment's notice, but based on the resources we have, based on what we think we are able to process, we're expecting to be able to process very similar numbers to where we were at in 2019. So kind of getting back to more of a normal pace of operations, if you will. On the IV side, basically after COVID hit, 2019 being the last normal year, 2020 and 2021 numbers are a little different but pretty similar, about 50% of where we were at in 2019. I think an important thing for our audience to realize is that we've been really a leader in the State Department in terms of where we are at in production. So even though those numbers seem small and they're somewhat dramatic in their own way, we've really maintained a pace of operations that really outstrips what other posts have been able to do in the region and really throughout the world. And that's a point of pride that we have here in the embassy. And it also reflects the great work that the government of Jamaica has done in managing COVID as well as they have really throughout. So again, over the last, 2021, 2020, we're about 50% of where we were at previously for immigrant visa processing. Obviously, as we move forward and we feel like we're kind of at that turning point a little bit, if you will, very hopeful that we're at this turning point. We're making immigrant visa processing a real priority in 2022. And what we are projecting is we will essentially double the number of cases in 2022 versus our last normal year in 2019. So what that means for all of you that are watching today, and especially those of you who have immigrant visa cases in the queue or you're anticipating to be in the queue in the very near term, is we are hopeful to be caught up with our entire backlog and be current by the end of calendar year 2022. So that means by the end of the year and going into 2023, and I understand this is a long wait for some people, but we're hoping at the end of the year to basically be doing cases as they are coming in. This has been a really long road, and I know people have been immensely patient and really understanding. And one of the things I really want to stress is that even throughout COVID, as I mentioned earlier, we've continued to do work, we've continued to process visas. For our non-immigrant visa folks, we've made student visas, for example, a priority. We've made temporary workers a priority. We've actually issued more temporary worker visas this last year than we ever did before, which is really a testament to our team here at the embassy and a testament to all of the stakeholders who worked very closely with us in this process, working out kind of innovative ways on processing these cases to protect the workers who are traveling to the United States and protect our staff as well. At the same time, this last year, we've processed over half of the number of exchange visitors as we did in 2019, the last normal year. We expect to, obviously process higher numbers this year. And throughout all of this, we've been able to accommodate emergency cases for immigrant visas. We've been able to expedite some cases that needed to be expedited for humanitarian purposes. So I think it's a good story to tell. I know that a lot of people have waited a very long time. I feel like we're at a point where we can provide some positive news that at least with where things stand right now, we should be able to really produce a lot of work over the next year and facilitate a lot of people traveling to the United States for personal business, for work, for tourism, but also to reunite families through the immigrant visa process. And I'd be remiss if I didn't, talk just briefly about American Citizen Services. Throughout COVID, our team has done really outstanding work supporting American citizens. We're at a point now where American citizens who need travel documents, passports, other services, we're basically providing them in a very short period of time without too long of a wait. And we're looking to expand into some other areas, some other services that in the past we have not been able to address as fully throughout COVID in the coming year as well. So I feel like we're in a good spot. I remain hopeful that 2022 will be a good year. Obviously, we pay very close attention to the news and things that are going on with COVID in particular. But I think I'm looking forward to a really exciting 2022.
I think so. That sounds amazing. Thank you so much for that update, Scott.
Mhm.
So especially, our immigrant visa applicants, we know you guys have been waiting for a while. So now that you've heard the great news that, of course, we are going to try and have that backlog cleared by the end of next year. One of the ways that we can do that is if everyone comes prepared to their immigrant visa interview. So please make sure that you look at all the resources provided. You can look at prior consular conversations. You can look at our YouTube videos, read all of the emails that we send, and please make sure that you come as prepared to your immigrant visa interview as possible, because on our side, we are able to issue immigrant visas when you come prepared. But if you do not come prepared to your interview, then that will add further processing time.
And if I can just add, Camila,
Of
and
course.
that's an excellent point. Coming prepared for your interview, whether it's for a passport or for a non-immigrant visa or for an immigrant visa, that is the best thing you can do to help your case move forward. We oftentimes get questions from people, what can I do? And that is the number one thing you can do is check the website, make sure that you are as prepared as possible, make sure that your documents are up to date. If you have a police certificate and you got it some time ago, make sure that it still meets the deadlines within the system. And one of the points that I really want to emphasize, I'm talking about basically doubling the number of immigrant visa cases in 2022. And what we're really working to do is we're trying to get as many people into that interview as possible, to give folks an opportunity to talk to an immigrant visa officer to make their case. And those folks who are prepared, as you said before, those are cases we're going to be able to issue and move quickly forward. Those cases that aren't prepared, that have issues, those are going to take even longer because we're going to have so many people in that queue to process and handle. So more than ever, it's super important for people to be prepared. One of the things I want to stress is on our website, we have a lot of good information, tips and tricks that people can use in order to make sure that they are prepared for their visa interview.
Yes, and then, on the NIV side, we know a lot of people have been concerned since, currently it looks like you can get an interview not until around 2023, correct?
Yeah.
But because we are increasing the amount of non-immigrant visas that we are going to be trying to process next year, that also means that appointments are going to start opening up, correct?
Yeah, so we're in the process now of adding more appointment availability into the system. Now that we have a better handle on what our resources are in terms of what we're able to process with some of the COVID protocols that remain in place. And so I think over the next few weeks, you will see more appointments into the system. I know that there are people that have appointments scheduled out into 2023. You are welcome to go into the system and, if possible, move your appointment forward if there is that availability out there. I will remind folks, even though, I think we're going to be in a better spot, we're going to have, some pretty significant wait times for NIVs for, several months. So people need to be prepared for that. If you are anticipating a trip sometime in 2022, watch the system regularly. And if you see an appointment, go ahead and make that appointment so that you can, make that possible. It's like everything, don't wait to the last minute to do that. But we still have some issues to work through on that. Obviously, our big priority is to reunite families over this next year. As we're able to do that, as we're able to make some headway on the immigrant visa front, then we'll redirect some resources to the non-immigrant visa front, and then hopefully that will equalize out over time.
And also for those, non-immigrant visa renewals, please remember that you can renew it via mail. You do not have to come into the embassy. Even if you have an appointment scheduled, but you know that you qualify for renewal, please make sure that you call the hotline and you say, hey, can I send it in by mail? And that will definitely help to at least be processed a little faster if you are looking for that renewal.
Yeah, and I'll be very honest, I know that there have been some delays in terms of
Mhm.
processing those renewal cases through interview waiver. We've devoted some additional resources to that to try and reduce that processing time. I think we'll be in a better spot toward the beginning of the year on that, and really be able to process those cases within a couple of weeks.
Great.
So.
Yeah. And so on a little side note, I did hear that the Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Western Hemisphere came to Jamaica.
That's exactly right, Camila. So, great news. One of the things that we're starting to see as we're kind of transitioning back to more of a normal pace of operations, not just within the consular section, but within the embassy overall, and really within the U.S. government, is we're starting to see travel again, and that's a mixed blessing in some respects. It's great to see kind of this return to normalcy. On the other hand, it means some work that we're a little bit rusty at. But yes, so Deputy Assistant Secretary Mark Wells came to Jamaica last week. He met with a number of high-level Jamaican government officials, had really fantastic meetings across the board. We're very thankful for the hospitality that the government of Jamaica showed to Das Wells and really to us always. Again, they were great meetings, and the point that Deputy Assistant Secretary Wells made time and time again, first and foremost, is that Jamaica is a key partner with the United States, and that we enjoy a very warm, very friendly, very mutually beneficial relationship with Jamaica, and we want to continue to do that work. Some of the areas that he talked about very closely with his Jamaican counterparts were on security and crime. We know that really Jamaica's wrestling with two epidemics. They're wrestling with COVID-19, but at the same time, wrestling with these issues of crime and security. The United States government is working very closely with the government of Jamaica on these issues. We have a large number of law enforcement agencies that work hand in hand with the government of Jamaica to really get to the root causes of crime and violence. And it's not just law enforcement. And I think sometimes that's what's missed in all this. There's a softer side to the work that the United States government does on a bilateral basis with the government of Jamaica, and that's through USAID. Our country director, Jason Frazier, had the privilege of taking Deputy Assistant Secretary Wells to a school to show the work that USAID is doing in schools, because that's really where some of these root causes of crime and violence come from, is people, young people not having educational opportunities, not following through with their education and things like that. And I know that was one of the highlights for the Deputy Assistant Secretary, was visiting that school. I think there was a picture in the newspaper of Mr. Wells with a number of school kids getting the picture taken. And that's really where it starts. And again, it's a whole of mission approach in supporting the government of Jamaica in the areas of need.
Yes, of course. And, as we talk about travel and people traveling back and forth between the U.S. and Jamaica, and especially since it is the holiday season, the testing requirements have changed slightly, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So a couple of things. First and foremost, to travel to the United States, you have to be vaccinated. There are some health and safety humanitarian exceptions, but those are very rare. So you need to be vaccinated first and foremost. If you're not vaccinated, get vaccinated now. Go to the Ministry of Health and Wellness's website. They have information there on how you can do that. The second part of it is the testing requirement. So as things stand right now, you have to have been tested within 1 day of your travel to the United States. And that's something that the airline will certify before you can be boarded on the airplane. So people need to get vaccinated. They need to get tested in the time frame that the rules provide for. If you want additional information, you can go on the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's website at cdc.gov.
Yes. And those will also say who is required to be vaccinated. Because I did see one question on the age of that vaccinations are required. So please make sure you go onto the CDC website, and that'll give you a little more information for both people who are just visiting and also people who are immigrating on what those requirements are when it comes to vaccinations and, of course, testing.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Alrighty, so we do have one question, which I think we can answer from D. Cod. He said he has an IR1 interview scheduled and can't make that interview date. So how does he go about rescheduling that?
So certainly this comes up from time to time. Thank you so much for the question, Dakad. If you're not able to make your appointment, please reach out to us, and you can contact us at kingstoniv@state.gov. Just explain the situation, explain that you need your appointment, and we will work to reschedule you as soon as possible, kind of within your schedule. Let me add that COVID is still out there, that there are people who are still afflicted with COVID, who are contract COVID. If you are sick at all, let me just make it kind of broad-based here. If you are sick, please do not come to your immigrant visa appointment or your non-immigrant visa appointment. Please reach out to us if you have an immigrant visa appointment. You can email us at kingstoniv@state.gov or kingstoniv@state.gov if you have a non-immigrant visa appointment. Just let us know you're not going to be able to attend your interview at the scheduled time and you would like to reschedule, and we will work very closely with you to accommodate you on that, because first and foremost, we're concerned about the individual's health and safety, but beyond that, we're also concerned about the health and safety of the folks who are working here at the embassy, our guards, our greeters, our interviewing officers, and whatnot. So it's important for people to protect themselves, but at the same time, work to protect others.
Yes, of course. A lot of immigrant visa questions, of course. One of the main ones is just, people are asking if they were documentarily qualified last year or even, in 2019, though I think we covered most of 2019,
Yeah,
but
I think so.
when it is that they're going to be scheduled. And I think the best thing that we can say is we can't specify where we are on those DQ dates, but what we can say is that we should be able to see all of those individuals sometime in 2022.
Yes, that's certainly the goal. We're working very closely with the National Visa Center back in the United States on scheduling. We're providing them regular updates in terms of what we can do. And we're working on streamlining our process as much as possible here just within the embassy. One of the things that I will remind folks, kind of going back to my earlier point, we're still in a COVID environment. So it is still important for people to maintain social distancing. One of the challenges that we have kind of with our plans for robust appointments over the course of 2022 is incorporating that social distancing in. People need to wash hands, take care of themselves. If they're sick, stay home, don't come for your appointment. Do all those types of things, because that's how we can help one another. And I'll go back to a point I've made several times now. The best thing you can do for everyone is to get vaccinated.
And actually, speaking about getting vaccinated, Tashane is asking, do I have to be vaccinated to come to a visa interview?
So you do not need to be vaccinated to come to a visa interview. However, as Camila pointed out before, if you are coming in for an immigrant visa, part of the medical process or the medical clearance that a person needs is demonstrating that you're vaccinated. So your medical might be held up if you're not fully vaccinated. And as we pointed out before, if you're planning on traveling to the United States really for any reason, either for immigration or tourism or a business trip, as things stand right now, you need to be vaccinated. So you don't need to be vaccinated for the visa appointment, especially for a non-immigrant visa appointment, but it is something that you really need to do before you get on a plane and go to the United States.
Perfect. And I think one last question. People are asking, are K visas being scheduled?
Yes, K visas are being scheduled. Now we're still in a process where we don't have a large number of appointments, so kind of a smaller number of appointments, but we are scheduling those cases, and I think you will see over the coming months even more K visa appointments being put into the system.
And as a reminder with Ks, we have the availability. However, it is on the petitioner and the applicant to actually schedule the interview themselves. We do not schedule the K interviews. Those have to be done by the petitioner on the system. So have them, check online, and there should be dates available. and you guys have to schedule your own K visa interviews. Okay.
That's exactly right. And if I can just add, not so much on the scheduling part of it, but we were talking before about people being prepared for the interview.
Yes.
For those people who are applying for immigrant visas, have some conversations with your petitioner before the interview. Make sure that the petitioner has done everything that he or she needs to do on their end, as well as on the applicant side. I mean, typically by the time it gets to us, it's mostly kind of incumbent on the applicant to have documents in order, but oftentimes there's information that's needed from the petitioner, especially on the affidavit of support and things like that. So really encourage applicants to do their part and talk with their petitioner, make sure everything is in order to be prepared for that visa appointment.
Perfect. All right, Scott. Well, I think that's about the time we have for
Oh my
today.
gosh.
Yeah, it's already been 25 minutes, but
So I have a question for you.
yes, sir.
Very sad news. So there's been a lot of good news in today's program,
There
but
has.
some sad news. Today is your last broadcast on Consular Conversations.
Yes, sir. Today is my last broadcast. I do want to thank all of the listeners, of course, for tuning in, especially this past year. It's been a great year being able to host these lives with so many of our incredible guests. And I hope that you guys take as much as you can from these lives. Make sure that you re-look at them whenever you are coming to an interview, just to make sure that you're prepared. And it's been an amazing 1 year here as your host of Consular Conversations.
Well, Camila, thank you so much for everything you've done. I don't think anyone has an appreciation for how much work goes into this. It's a lot of effort by a lot of people, but Camila in particular, making sure that she is prepared, making sure that the guests are prepared. And again, as we were talking before, having that walk through memory lane earlier, thinking about how far we've come on this program, really a lot of it is due to the great work that Camila has done. And thank you so very much.
Thank you. All righty, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. And of course, we hope to see you on the next Consular Conversations.
Great. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.